watching Southwest Florida in focus. Coming up, hurricane season means prep time for your home and business. While some residents in barrier island communities are stockpiling necessary items, others have grown tired of rebuilding again. A battle of the bugs is happening in your backyard. How Lee County is getting ahead of a potentially busy mosquito season. And the experimental blood test that looks to detect cancer well before a tumor ever forms. Hello, I'm Sandra Victorova. Thank you for joining us. As Floridians begin their preparations for hurricane season, some meteorologists are concerned that cuts to federal agencies mean scientists have fewer tools to track bad weather. We'll talk to a leading meteorologist from the University of Florida about what the cutbacks could mean. But first, we look at how one barrier island community is still recovering from last year's storms while preparing for the potential impact of another hurricane season. WGCU's Mike Walcher reports.
Several hurricanes in less than 3 years reveal the spirit of Pine Islanders. There's the tough guy.
I'm not really afraid of anything, you know.
The woman who worries water is winning the coastal conflict with humans.
People are tired. I'm tired.
The man whose house flooded 2 times in 2 weeks.
I was just frustrated with seeing furniture and stuff being destroyed.
And Pine Islanders learned to follow an old saying: in disaster, look for the helpers.
The GPI has gotten really good at responding to natural disasters.
That's the Greater Pine Island Alliance, formed after Ian. Since then, it's dried out and rebuilt homes for 200 families. And the group still is helping another 102 families make their flooded homes livable.
For every single one of our survivors, it goes beyond just being happy and proud. It is absolute elation to have someone return to a safe, secure, and sanitary environment.
People are raising homes, refusing to surrender the island to the wrath of nature. They're building bigger and higher on the waterfront. Others have moved away, leaving many properties for sale. 65-year-old Henry Brinkman bought and moved into this mobile home in St. James City. That's at the south end of the island. That was spring 2022. He says earthquakes and fires drove him out of California. He admits he knew nothing about hurricanes on September 28th of 2022.
I said, what are they worried about? Then I get a call from California from my friend. He said, you need to get out. And then I said, what are you talking about? He said, there's something major coming to you.
That something was Ian. It flooded his home. He plowed his truck through high water and barely managed to get off island and to a shelter. Later, he dried out and repaired his home.
I'm a very strong person. I can tell you that to knock me out, it needs really something serious.
Then last year, Debbie, Helene, and Milton brought more floodwaters. Each time, Brinkman repaired his place. He says he stopped on the Matlacha Bridge during one evacuation last fall. A friend called and urged him to drive off the bridge and come to a concrete block home. Brinkman drove away, and a tornado touched down minutes later right where he'd been on the bridge. You might think damage and danger would convince him to move off island. Not so.
If something happened to you, it's going to happen no matter what. So that's how I see the world going around.
At the north end of the island in Mosquito, Robert and Ellen Ballard are grateful that volunteers, along with FEMA and an insurance company, fixed up their home. Helene and then Milton flooded the place last fall.
It was a shock. It was a shock to say this house was built in 1968 and all these years it's never flooded. I don't break down. It don't bring me to tears. It's part of living on the island.
Robert Ballard's family goes back several generations on Pine Island. But he and Ellen agree they will move away if another storm floods the house.
I will never do this again. It's too expensive. It's too stressful.
It'll be it. Yeah, we won't hear. Somebody will get this house.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Yes.
Meantime, the Alliance gets donated goods to prepare for this hurricane season. These people say restoring the houses and spirits of their neighbors keeps them here.
This is home. This is where my son was born. My father lives down the street from me. My grandmother lived here. This is an island community of generational families, and this is home.
Pine Islanders say their paradise may not have the panache of Sanibel or the sand of Fort Myers Beach, But it's one of the last places of old Florida, and islanders cherish that in spite of hurricanes. For WGCU News, I'm Mike Walcher.
Some storm experts are expressing concern, and not just about the predictions for a busy hurricane season. The scientists are preoccupied about the large cuts to the federal agencies that forecast and respond to hurricanes. According to the Associated Press, the Trump administration has made large-scale staff reductions, travel and training restrictions, and grant cutoffs to both FEMA, which prepares for and responds to hurricanes, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, which tracks and forecasts storms. Representatives of both NOAA and FEMA say the agencies are prepared. After public backlash, the National Weather Service recently announced it is starting the process of hiring more than 100 employees to, quote, stabilize operations at its field offices around the country. Joining us now with more on this topic is Chief Meteorologist Tim Miller, the director of the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network. Tim, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So, Tim, we know, obviously, we depend on you and your team of meteorologists to guide us through storms here at WGCU, and you serve public media outlets across the state. Trying to get a sense of whether you are seeing or feeling these federal cutbacks, and are you seeing any change in the data you're receiving?
That's a great question. That's a question really that's, for us, isn't causing us a problem here in the state of Florida, and certainly not with us at all. The data that we receive here in the university and for the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network is the same information the National Weather Service receives. So that information that they receive, we also receive, and then our meteorologists then, of course, interpolate that data, then make a forecast based on the information that we see based on the weather model. So directly being affected, no, not at all.
The Associated Press was reporting that as of late March, the Weather Service's 120 local field offices had vacancy rates of more than 20%, and that weather balloon launches had been curtailed because of lack of staffing. Is this a big deal? Obviously, the Trump administration says there's bloat and waste in the federal government. Are these cuts a big deal or not?
Yeah, well, they really are a big deal. Although we may not be seeing it directly here affecting us, they are seeing it across the country. And the launch of weather balloons is a really big deal. You would think here in the year 2025, why are we launching weather balloons? Isn't there some other technology that we can have? The answer to that is no. These weather balloons are extremely important to be launched all across the country. They give us data of the upper atmosphere. They give us exactly wind movements, humidity, temperature readings, and just basically a snapshot of the atmosphere. If we lose that ability, we lose the ability to be able to forecast, and forecast modeling will be hampered by this. And there are many areas around the country that already were in dire straits of not having a full staffed National Weather Service office. And now any of these cuts to those particular areas just hampers the situation even further.
Do you see, though, any legitimacy in saying that there are ways that perhaps NOAA could be more efficient, FEMA as well?
Sure, I think anything could be any always more efficient, that's for sure. But the problem with NOAA and the National Weather Service is the fact that we have been down meteorologists all around the country for a number of years. So these cuts are going to hamper our situation even worse. It doesn't make a bad situation better. It just makes it actually worse at a time where we really need the most weather prowess that we can have available around the country at our fingertips, so the public remains safe. That's going to be a really concern, especially as we go to hurricane season.
Tim Miller, we thank you for what you do, and thank you for talking to us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. After the break, combating cancer at home, how a new device could allow women to be stewards of their own health when facing the threat of cervical cancer. As the rain returns to Southwest Florida, so do those pesky mosquitoes. Drought conditions created a perfect environment for mosquito eggs, which lay dormant for months until the first rains led to their hatching. The mosquito season has kicked into high gear. WGCU's Jennifer Crawford explains the full-on assault to combat the insects.
Lee County operates the largest mosquito control military operation budget.
Bay. You can see our helicopter off our left side over here. He is treating this island out here for mosquitoes.
It's round-the-clock warfare to keep the tiniest enemies from taking over.
1/10 of our land is salt marsh area. It breeds just a prolific amount of salt marsh mosquitoes.
If left unchecked, their quest for blood meals could threaten tourism, hurt economic development, and spread mosquito-borne viruses.
Is the Aedes aegypti, and that thrives really well in this environment that we live in. It carries things like chikungunya, Zika, dengue. So we're constantly monitoring here in Southwest Florida surveillance to keep our people safe.
The battle plan to keep mosquitoes under control often drawn up in the war room at headquarters each week.
This is the service request calls that we've gotten in the last 3 days. It's been a busy week.
It's carried out in 2 phases, larviciding during the day and adulticiding at night.
We spend 75% approximately of our operations doing larviciding. So the mosquito goes through egg, larva, pupa, adults. We're catching them in that larval stage. In fact, that's what our helicopters are doing right now. And that's because we want to catch them before they become biting adults and possibly biting adults that may carry a virus.
Any larvae missed mature in 5 to 7 days to adults, and they can travel up to 20 miles away.
What I'm seeing is definitely a salt marsh area. We've got lots of water down there in between. It's kind of a brush area. Very close to that mangrove area, there's houses and development.
Do you receive calls from these areas complaining about mosquitoes?
Yes, it's amazing that people can live this close to the mangrove area, but when you're on the ground, you don't realize the sheer amount that's near you.
On average, 4 chopper pilots a day make between 5 and 12 surveillance checks, landing in areas not accessible by truck. The biologist dips a cup in the water, looking for any signs of larvae or black worms called wigglers. This information helps the team determine where to return to larvicide that day.
We're constantly looking for habitat areas. We may treat a water area during the day. We always go back and do a backup check to make sure what we're doing is effective and working.
While most of the effort is spent on larviciding, the rest focuses on attacking the adult biting population.
Adulticiding is when we have an adult problem, when we couldn't catch them at the larval stage because of the sheer number. And that happens at nighttime, during peak hours.
McBride says their research shows sunset is the ideal time to adulticide, using fixed-wing aircraft to carry out the evening missions.
The airplanes can cover a lot more ground. We're going a little bit quicker than in the helicopter. It's also safer. It's a 2-engine aircraft. It's a great job. I love being able to do it, knowing that we are getting rid of the mosquitoes as much as we can.
With a battleground spanning more than 1,200 square miles and divided into 5 zones, those fighting the war to control 54 species of mosquitoes thriving in Lee County know their mission will continue as long as humans choose to live, work, and vacation in one of the most unique mosquito habitats on Earth. I'm Jennifer Crawford reporting for WGCU News.
And Mosquito Control says they want to hear from you. You can report problems by calling the agency 24/7. They say that feedback helps the agency know about hotspots brewing. Well, according to the American Cancer Society, cancer killed more than 611,000 people in the U.S. last year, with an estimated 2 million people diagnosed with new cancer cases. One organization is looking to get ahead of the disease by developing a blood test to detect cancer cells before a tumor even forms. WGCU's Teddy Byrne looks at how the company is hoping to change the future of cancer detection.
The world that we envision is that all of us will do this test once a year, and we either catch cancer at stage 1 or before, when it is infinitely more curable.
Tzar Labs CEO Ashish Tripathi is a man on a mission. His group started working on a cancer drug, but while studying cancer pathways, the team found that they could detect mutations of DNA in stem cells before potentially evolving into a cancerous tumor.
If you detect cancer at stage 1, survival rates are 87 to 92% after 5 years. Stage 2, it comes down to 65%. Stage 3, it comes down to 35%. Stage 4, only 6% of the people will survive 5 years, right? So early detection is a very, very big part solving cancer. There are 200 different types of cancer, 3,000 subtypes of cancer. We claim that we can detect all of them.
Aside from early detection, scientists hope the new blood test could reduce the need for biopsies, getting quicker results to doctors. That information would also show where the cancer is forming and if it has spread to other regions in the body.
What we are claiming is that we can get the biopsy results. Sometimes the driver mutation is coming from a second tumor. If I do a biopsy of this one, I don't get those results. I can technically pull out details of all of them because we have progenitus coming from multiple organs in the blood.
For anyone in later stages of cancer, performing multiple blood tests could be helpful in combating the disease. As a tumor mutates, doctors can develop specific treatments without putting the patient through more invasive medical procedures.
If 10 people have lung cancer, the same medicine doesn't work on all 10, right? The challenge, however, is that the physical process of doing a biopsy speeds up the activity of tumors. So think about it. Today, when we do a biopsy, we get the pathways readings, and on the basis of which we start giving a drug. But then the oncologist goes blind again because he can't do another. We continue to give the same medication until one day you come back and say the cancer came back with a vengeance. It came back with a vengeance because you never changed your strategy.
Tripathi says that by including this test with annual checkups, it could help people stay ahead of cancer by highlighting early warning signs.
Anyone that has been touched with cancer knows that what plays in your mind is, were there signatures before? Could you have acted before, right? And a year is a long time with this disease, right? So anything that can help detect it earlier, I think that's a big part of the battle, and we believe our test will help a lot of people.
For WGCU News, I'm Teddy Byrne.
Cervical cancer used to be one of the most common causes of cancer death for American women. But since the mid-1970s, that death rate has dropped by more than half due to prevention and screenings, according to the American Cancer Society. Now, even more lives could be saved after the FDA approved the country's first at-home cervical cancer screening tool, essentially an alternative to the Pap smear. To learn more about this medical breakthrough, we are joined now by Dr. Rama Makku, an assistant professor of health outcomes and biomedical informatics at the University of Florida's College of Medicine. Thank you, Dr. Makku, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, wow, so many of us, I'll include myself, dread getting the Pap smear. Of course, you've got doctors who have to use that cold metal speculum to, go beyond the vagina and then, get to the cervix, and it can be uncomfortable, for some even painful. So how big of a medical breakthrough is this when it comes to women's health now?
This is a big deal. I have to say that it is a very exciting time for women, especially. I'm not the only one who does not find the Pap smear to be a very exciting procedure. What this means for women is that they can take their health into their own hands. And the biggest barrier to getting the Pap smear done, as you mentioned, is the uncomfortableness of the test. So what this new breakthrough means is that women can take that test home. They can self-swab. They can swab the cells themselves in the comfort and privacy of their home, and then they can mail the test back to the doctor's office, and the doctor's office or the lab will then tell them if they have the HPV virus, which is the leading cause of cervical cancer. So it is a game changer for women.
So, doctor, I know that you believe that this will encourage women to get tested, right? But I am wondering, I was reading on their website, the Teal Wands website, that it's a prescription device for women ages 25 to 65 at average risk. Do you have any concerns that perhaps people may be at greater risk and don't really realize that they are and they're going to go get this exam? Or that perhaps we're missing out on having a doctor there performing it and visually being able to see, all of a woman's anatomy to make sure that everything's okay?
Yeah, so unfortunately, in the U.S., 4,000 women die every year of cervical cancer. And our research shows that the women who are dying from cervical cancer are the ones that don't have access to health care. They don't have a primary care provider, like you said, to check them physically. And so the reason why this test is so important is because we are trying to reach those women who don't have access. So despite, it's not this, again, our healthcare system, it's very complex and there's a lot of challenges, but just the availability and having this option of going through a company if you're not insured, for example, and if you don't have the time to physically go to a doctor, this test is making it easier for those women who are missing out on screening.
Dr. McCoo, we so appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Coming up, it has been nearly 3 years since Hurricane Ian decimated sections of Southwest Florida. Now, a new documentary captures the stories of people that survived the rising surge. If you experienced Hurricane Ian, it is no surprise it is considered the worst natural disaster in Southwest Florida history. A new WGCU documentary reveals the science behind the destruction, how the age of our residents, the slope of our shoreline, and our construction helped make Ian the deadliest and costliest in our region's history. Rising, Surviving the Surge also examines the persistent threat of storm surge from the coast to the heart of the state.
As residents tried to rise from the wreckage, the storms kept coming.
It was crazy. Years ago, they used to project that Florida would be on the water. Florida's gonna be on the water. And you would be like, man, y'all crazy. You know what I'm saying? But now, these hurricanes are so big, it's at the bottom of the state, but it's still hitting the top of the state. It's crazy.
We are joined now by WGCU's Janine Zeitlin, senior producer and writer of this project, and videographer and editor Tom James. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks. So many fascinating characters in this documentary, but I loved how you started with a senior in her 60s and her son. They don't live near the beach, but yet their story was so compelling. Why did you start with them?
First of all, they're great storytellers. They're very expressive, but they also have a very dramatic story of how they survived the surge once the surge was coming in to their home in Naples, which they definitely did not expect. This home has been in their family for generations.
Yeah, and they actually were working with the Collier County Community Foundation, and they got a grant to raise their house. So they're actually getting it hopefully out of harm's way, raising it up 7 feet. So it was interesting that we were able to follow them through this process. Nobody really understood how long this would take, and we're finding out it's a very difficult process. So you kind of see them go through it all to finally get their house in a position to where they can raise it.
There's no shortage of dramatic, tragic stories from Hurricane Ian. How did you decide which stories to include, not include, and what do you hope those stories, convey to our audience?
I think a lot of people changed during Hurricane Ian, and I think it changed our landscape, it changed residents, but in a lot of the stories, we wanted to show that change through the individual stories, and the people that we featured, they changed in different ways.
That leads me to my closing question, which is what you hope viewers will finally get out of this documentary.
I think when I watch it, even though we created it, when you hear all these stories, I think what comes out of it is listen to evacuation orders. If you are told to leave an area, there is science behind it, there's data behind it, and your life could be in danger, which is why authorities are telling you to leave.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely all these storms are different, and we've seen that, and you can't use the past experiences of storms to judge how you're going to react to this storm. You need to listen to it, orders and evacuation orders, and be prepared.
Janine and Tom, thank you so much for your hard work on this project.
Thank you.
And you can watch Rising, Surviving the Surge Thursday, June 12th at 8 p.m. on WGCU TV or on YouTube. It's been over a decade since a proposed airport was to deliver a big economic boost to Southwest Florida. Next week, we look into the issues that have kept the big plans grounded. Join us for that story and more next week. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our WGCU News YouTube channel, where you will find all of our stories and extended interviews. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks for watching. We've got more great content for you, from news to the arts to the environment. So be sure to like and subscribe to WGCU's YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms for the stories that matter to you.